So this formula here is the exact same formula as the appreciation formula, except it has division of CP and times by CP. What the heck is CP? CP is compounding periods. So what you have to do is you have to compound every single month or every single 6 months or whatever. So what does that mean? So if we go and we say that it compounds monthly, at the end of each month, it takes whatever interest you made, it puts it into what you put in, and then the next month you're making interest off what you invested plus the interest. So compounding, you actually make money faster. If your loan is compounded, you actually pay money more, which kind of sucks. So when it's an investment, you want to have it compounded. John. So it compounds monthly. That's every 12 months. So let's just say you were making 12% interest. This will never happen. If you're making 12% interest and you compounded monthly, how much would you make each compounding period? What percent?
12%.
You make 12% per year. It's compounded monthly. How much would you make each month? 1%, which is why I picked 12, because that's easier, right? So that's why we have this. That's why we have little I divided by the compounding periods, because it's going to give you how much interest you make per compounding period. That's why we have to divide by compounding periods when it's compound interest. Then N is the number of years times compounding periods. This will get you the total number of compounding periods. So say I did it for 5 years, compounding monthly. How many compounding periods would I have? 5 years compounded monthly. 60. I would have 60 compounding periods, and then I divide by compounding periods because I know how much interest per compounding period. So that's why when it's compounding, you have to divide the I by compounding periods, and you have to multiply the years by compounding periods to get total compounding periods. If they actually give you this formula, they won't give you the CPs in it. So you have to remember to do the CP to it if they actually give you the formula. And it's often AP equals 1 plus I to the n. And they use A for accumulated amount and P for principal. So these have not changed. F is final amount. I is initial amount. Bless you. I is interest rate in decimal form. I'm recording. Nope, that's not what I meant. I just can't. N is number of years. And CP is the only thing that's different. It's compounding periods. So it's how many times a year it happens. So there's a little chart of compounding periods off to the side. So if it compounds annually, how many times a year is that? One. If it compounds semi-annually, how many times is that? Two. If it compounds quarterly and monthly, right. So nothing crazy. So let's go through and see what we have. So remember, if we don't know n, that's when we have to convert to a log every single time, and we don't know that exponent. Other than that, we know all the math that we can do to solve for every other variable. So here it says, Isla invests $500 in an account paying 6% per annum. So she invests $500. Where does that go? I. So it's my initial is 500. 6% per annum. Per annum is just a fancy way of saying per year. So my little I is what? Not 6, but 0.06. Compounded semi-annually. What's my CP? 2, which makes sense. I'm going to take my interest rate, divide it by 2. Then every compounding period I'm making 3%, correct? And then my n times 2 to get total number of compounding periods. Remember, you need to understand. If you don't understand something, you need to raise your hand, because that's what Math 30 needs. You need to understand why you're doing something. Memorizing is a scary tactic. Because they switch or turn something, you won't be able to do it because you've memorized only one way of doing something. So if you don't understand, please ask. And then it says determine the value of the investment after 5 years. So they gave me n, and what are they making me find? The final. So the final amount is what we're trying to find. The initial is 500. And then I do 1 plus my interest rate divided by CP. So 0.06 divided by 2, because I'm making 3% per compounding period. And then up here, I need the total number of compounding periods. So it's 5 times 2. So it's not actually 5 compounding periods, it's 10, which makes sense. If it compounds twice a year for 5 years, that's 10 compounding periods. That's what we get as our exponent. Does that make sense? How we get that 10 up there? And then our interest rate, we divide by compounding periods because it's how much interest we make for each compounding period. So you can type it in just like this, or I'm going to short form it to make less typing. 1.03 to the 10. So F equals 671.96. Now, that's if I asked for final, which I did, determine the value of the investment. What if I asked you for how much interest she made at the end of those 5 years? You subtract the 500. She walked into the bank with 500. She walks out with 671.96, right? It's not like she walked in and then she walked out with 671.96. She walked in with some money. She leaves with more money, hopefully. How much more money did she leave with? 171.96. So that's how much interest she made if they asked that question, right? So the value of the investment is that much, but the interest she made was 171.96. Okay. So now this one says, how long does it take for the investment to double? So it has to double, so our final is going to be 1,000 equals 500. All of this is set up the same. 1 plus 0.06 divided by 2. But now I have n times 2, right? What do I do when I have that initial, guys? What did we say?
Divide.
You always divide. If you have the initial and the final, your first step is always division. So I'm going to divide by 500. And I get 2 equals 1.03 to the 2n. Now I don't know the exponent, so what do I have to do? Convert to a logarithm. That's how we get that exponent down, right? We learned that yesterday. So we get log base what? What's the base of my exponent? 1.03 is the base of my exponent. 1.03 is the base of my exponent. That's going to be the base of my log. What's friends? It can stay friends. So what are we going to get beside?
2.
2. And then it's going to equal 2n. And then I just have to divide my answer by 2. So it doesn't say what to round to. I'm going to round to the nearest whole number, so 12 years.
She only get like $600 and $500 for robbing a bank. I know, that's insane. Oh, you really?
I don't even know. All right. Look here. Example 2, 3. 7,000 is invested, so that's my initial. In a 6-year GIC compounded quarterly, so I'm times by 4. The rate is 5%. Divide by 4 because I need to find my interest rate compounding period. And then they want the value of the investment at the end of the loan. What did you guys get? Pardon? Thank you. And then we box it because we're loud and proud, and then we write a sentence, which would say, the value of the investment at the end of the 6-year GIC, 6-year compounding period would be, 6-year term, which would be 9,431.46. Okay. Determine the interest rate. So they want the little I to 1 decimal place. Interest rate per annum, it should be per 1 decimal place as a percent, at which 3,000 compounded quarterly will double over 5 years. Okay. So let's see if you guys did the math right, because this one usually hangs people up. So we get 6,000 equals 3,000. There's a little fly. 1 plus I. There literally is a fly. I'm not thinking. Divided by 4, and then 5 times 4. Okay, so we divide by our initial first always, and we get 2. 2 equals 1 plus I divided by 4 to the 20. Then I take the 20th root, and myself, I actually do not write this down as a decimal. I write it as the 20th root of 2. So I get the 20th root of 2 equals 1 plus I divided by 4. So the next thing I have to do, except do reverse BEDMAS, I subtract 1. So I get the 20th root of 2. Subtract 1 equals I divided by 4, and then I multiply by 4. So I get 20th root of 2. That is not good. Minus 1 times 4 times 100 is 14.1%. So then you would write a sentence and you would say, the interest rate is 14.1% per annum to make an investment go from 3,000 to 6,000, or 3,000 to make an investment double over 5 years, whatever. Explain it properly. All right, so the cool thing is you have no homework, except for if you have the book, that's really have a lot of homework.